Hello class. In this video we're going to start section 1.3, the rectangular coordinate system and graphs. So we start out with some basic definitions. We talk about ordered pairs, the origin, a plane. All right, so maybe pause the video and just take a moment to read this first three paragraphs. Many of you are familiar with these terms and definitions. And I plan to cover these definitions as we work through the material. Okay, so the first thing I see is I do see the origin. So I do want to make sure that you recognize that that's the point that occurs at 0, 0. And I didn't do a good job drawing my arrow, but that's the origin, right? That point is the beginning. So that's important to know. And then also you're going to see a definition of quadrants. Right, quadrants run counterclockwise, right? So this would be quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. A lot of work that we're going to be doing this semester will happen in quadrant 1, for the most part. On the next page, we have some additional definitions and terminology, right? The first one that I see that's very important is the coordinates of a point. And so when we think of a point, we think of like an X and a Y. So I'm going to make up numbers. I just made up 2, 1 here. Okay. And what they're saying is the first number, right, represents the horizontal distance, right? So this 2 would be my X, and that's the distance that I'm going from my origin, right? So if this is my origin, my horizontal distance would be 1 unit, 2 units to the right, right? And then the second value is your vertical distance, right? So horizontal is what happens to the left and to the right, and vertical is what happens going up and down, right? So the second number expresses the vertical distance, right? What's going up and down, okay? And then again, positive means going to the right or up. Negative means going to the left or down. So these are things you just want to make sure you have clear in your head. So down here, they give us an example, right? If we were to plot a point, -2, 3, I would go over 2 units to the left and up 3 units, right? The negative means I go to the left. If this was a +2, I would go to the right. Negative means I go to the left, right? And then positive on the second number means I go up. A negative would mean I would go down. And we're always talking about distance from the origin. On the next page, they have a practice problem. This is good exercise. We're not going to do all of the letters, but remember, all of the practice exercises, the answers can be found in the back of the book. But let's just take a few of them. So letter A. So I see my point over here. So it looks like we went over 2 units to the right. So my first number is a 2. And then we went up, it looks like 10 units. So the ordered pair would be 2, 10. Right? I'm going to pick another letter. Let's look at letter G. Right? So letter G down here. It looks like we're going to the left 6 units. So my first number would be a -6. And then we're going up, it looks like 7 units, right? This line here corresponds to the number that's in between 6 and 8. And that would be my ordered pair, right? So that's how you write your ordered pairs. We'll do one more. Let's do letter M. So here's M down here. So we went to the right 2, right? We went to the right 2 units. And then we went down, looks like 8, 9 units, so -9. All right, so when you get a chance, maybe pause the video and fill in the rest of these values. Check your answers at the back of the book, okay? Next, it talks about 4 representations of a rule. In the first, I think, lesson, we talked about how to represent things verbally, using words, symbolically, right, using math symbols. We talked about an input-output table, right, a numerical method. And then finally, we want to talk about graphically. All right, so let's look at the problem below. The example says you start this year with $10 in a savings account. You save an additional $30 per month. So here is the symbolic representation, right, of the verbal representation. Numerically speaking, if I were to put in these values for X, the values I would get for Y is found here, right? If I put in 0 for X, let me write this down on the side, right? If I use the formula they give us and write Y equals 10 plus 30 times 0, right? The 0 comes from here. You'd be left with 10. And I took the liberty to fill in a few more. I used my typewriter feature. It's a lot neater than what I've written here, right? So if I take this 1 and I sub it in for X, right? Remember, I'm using, this is the original equation, and I'm just replacing the X with the values that are given for months, okay? So if I replace X with 1, I get 40. If I replace X with 2, I get 70. If I replace X with 3, I get 100, and so on. So as the ordered pair, you take the value from your input and your output, right? So the input column would be the 0, the 1, the 2. The output column would be my 10, the 40, and the 70, and so on. Okay, so just to recap, over here is a verbal representation of a problem, right? You have an account with $10 in a savings account. You save $30 per month. That same scenario is represented here using symbols, right, with the equation. This table represents a numerical description of the problem. And again, here's the equation. And the next thing we can do is, with these ordered pairs, we can actually plot or make a graph using these pairs, right? I could plot the point 0, 10, 1, 40, 2, 70. So let's take a look at that on the next page. So the next page shows us a copy of the graph. And again, where did these points come from? On the previous page, I had the points, right? 0, 10, 140, 270. So if you plot these points, right, 0, 10 or 1, 40, this is what you get. You get a straight line here. Okay, so this is a graphical representation of that same problem. Okay, and from the graph, we can use it to answer questions. All right. Let's take a look at some practice exercises. So it says the ordered pair 3, 100 means that after blank months, the total amount in savings is. So if the x-axis represents months and the y-axis represents savings, you would say after 3 months, the savings is $100. Okay, so I'll fill that in. All right, after 3 months, the savings would be 100, right? The practical meaning of the ordered pair 0, 10 would be after 10 months, and I'll type this in, right? So I'd say something like after 10 months, the savings would be $10, okay? Use the rule to determine how much money would be in your savings account after 1 year. All right, so 1 year is 12 months. So if we go back to our graph, we're going to use the rule. So actually, I'm sorry, it's not from the graph. Let's use the function rule. Right? If you remember the rule, I have to go back a page. The rule was this y equals 10 plus 30x. So we're going to substitute in 12 for x, right? So y equals 10 plus 30 times 12. So again, there's 12 months in 1 year, so I did y equals 10 plus 30 times 12 to get, looks like 360 plus 10 is 370, right? So using the rule, I was able to determine that I'd have $370 in my account after 1 year. Okay, I think I'm going to stop here, and I'll create a second video to finish off this section. Thank you for watching.